Hey, well, good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see um, a number of familiar faces. Tonight is actually going to be a little bit more or a little less formal than usual. Uh, I also want to welcome the star of the show tonight, which is Emily Nichols. She's on the podcast with us, but you're going to hear a lot more about her in just a little bit. So tonight's session is all about coaching with the Hero's Journey. And maybe just to give you a little background, last week we talked about coaching and self-coaching using the Hero's Journey. And I promised in that session that we'll spend some more time this week with some examples of coaching sessions that I've had. And in the 2 weeks since, I had the good fortune of actually speaking to two wonderful, wonderful ladies. And we had two really amazing coaching sessions. And I very specifically, based on the questions we had in the last session, I very specifically focused on running one coaching session and making the Hero's Journey very much a part of that as the content. And that's the session that I had with Emily, and I'll introduce you to Emily a little bit later. Then I had a second session with Gert Garman, another great friend of mine, all the way from Florida in the United States. And I had a coaching session with her where I very specifically ran the coaching session according to the Hero's Journey, but I never mentioned the Hero's Journey. So I did it almost content-free as far as the Hero's Journey is going. And I ended up with two wonderful recordings. And in sort of evaluating what I should do with these recordings, I thought, it would be such a pity to cut them apart just to show little pieces of the coaching process. And eventually I decided what I am going to do is to sort of split these two coaching sessions into two sessions, one of which we'll do tonight. And I'm going to be very proud to sort of run the full session that I had with Emily. And the second session that I had with Gert, I am going to run with you in about 4 weeks' time from now, 6 weeks' time from now, sorry. Also, what I've decided is instead of interrupting the session by cutting it apart and analyzing it, I am going to sort of make some commentary about the session ahead of playing the recording, but I'm going to give you the whole recording. And I think you'll understand why once I play you the recording of this session tonight, and of course the session that I'll be doing in 6 weeks from now. Because actually hearing the session from start to finish, I think gives a lot more context to the coaching process. And it actually will give you insight into the energy and the struggle for getting to answers in a better way than if I had cut it apart and sort of tried to sort of analyze it to death. So maybe just for a moment, and just sort of, and Shurt actually asked me, I was not planning to do this exercise this evening, but let's just do a very abbreviated version of the coach state tonight. And I just want you, where you are sitting in your seat, just to sit back, maybe just close your eyes for a moment, relax all of the muscles in your body, and just take a deep breath in and out. And if you remember, while breathing in and out, what it feels like in and out to be in the coach state, that absolute moment of presence. And I'm going to ask you to be there now. And then just very gently return your attention to what we are talking about, while still absolutely focusing on this moment, the present moment. Good. So last week I spoke, or 2 weeks ago, I spoke about the structure of a coaching session. And I sort of gave you the insight that the major parts of coaching, of a coaching session is very simply establishing a rapport, making sure that the relationship and the interaction between the coach and the coaching client exists to the level where trust is established. Then to contract an outcome. And once you've got a firm outcome that you can work with, to explore that outcome and, of course, resource that outcome with resources that the coaching client has or can acquire. Okay. Then it's all about agreeing an action plan, eliciting insights, and closing sessions. And I think when you listen to the sessions that we've recorded, specifically the one tonight, that actually follows this outline very closely. There was, I will say this to you, that there was a bit of rapport building that happened before the coaching session that you will hear tonight started. But you'll also notice that there is quite a bit of rapport building and relationship building going on before we even contract the outcome that Emily, in this case, wanted to achieve. Then you'll also remember, in terms of the hero's journey, there's a very clear focus on purpose, but there's also the process of understanding where the coaching client is in the process of growth that they've set for themselves. And in tonight's session, you'll actually hear that there's a lot of work done around call to adventure. And there's a lot of exploration around the call to adventure. And what is very important is that call to adventure is contextualized within purpose. And one of the wonderful things about the coaching session that I'm going to play for you is that although Emily's purpose wasn't there consciously for her, on an unconscious level, it was definitely very, very strong for her, because when she was guided towards purpose, she started off by saying, no, she's not sure what her purpose is, but then in just talking about it, the purpose just emerged. And I sort of want to remind you of some of the first sessions that we had, and thinking about purpose in the sense of it is something that is emergent. It's not something that is defined exactly. And where your purpose is now is what you're working with. That purpose may change. That purpose may grow in a certain direction, but it emerges over time. What is important, though, is to connect with the sense of purpose. And often the sense of purpose leads you to purpose. You might also notice during the conversation, there's a lot of language that is used by me in terms of supporting the concept of the hero's journey. There's words that I use like yearning. What are you yearning for? There's a lot of focus on meaning. There's a lot of talk around passion. Okay, there's a lot of talk about the reinforcement of the journey that you are on, and that Emily was on in this example. And I, from my side, also used a number of examples to support the concept of a journey that we are on. And I'm not going to specifically tell you this journey that I was on, that I offered to Emily as an example, but it focused on the fact that if you are listening to a call of an adventure, that is the start of a journey. It's not something to be solved tonight. It's not something to be solved in the next week. It's a journey that we go on that is triggered by this wonderful call that has come to us. And it might be a call that's been repeated. it's the kind of call that keeps on coming until you are ready to answer it. Okay. Now, if you are a coach and you are thinking about using the hero's journey as a coaching approach, probably the very first and most important thing is, as a coach, it's really important to create for your coaching client the canvas of possibility. And as far as possible, open up the possibilities of what they can do rather than pushing them in a direction. So on the one hand, you have to stick to what you are trying to accomplish with the journey, but on the other hand, you have to create space for the work, and you must allow your coaching client to be able to create that work and create those conclusions and those insights for themselves. So let me introduce you to Emily. Now, apart from the fact that she's a professional engineer with lots and lots of experience in manufacturing, I met Emily probably about, if I might be wrong about this, but about 4 years ago, when she was a brand new delegate at a wonderful creativity conference in Canada called Mindcamp. And she showed up in this creative space, and she just embraced everything that was wonderful about a creativity conference. And as someone that's been to many, many creativity conferences over the years, it was so refreshing to see someone walking in there with this absolute sense of wonder and being open to the experience. And the next year she showed up with a sister in tow, and the next year she showed up and she actually presented this conference. So she's definitely a go-getter and really answers those calls to adventure that come her way. I'm going to sort of I'm hoping the bandwidth's going to keep up with us, but I'm going to just sort of let Emily introduce herself via one of the Facebook videos that she's published. So this is Emily.
About our future is we think about one future. Society has us in this rut where there's one future, but a lot of magic happens when you kind of open that up and think about 3 possible futures. You have, let's say we call it an apple plan, an orange plan, and a strawberry plan. We think of 3 completely different future selves. Here's where the fun part comes in. We prototype that in the workshop to say, okay, what's a small stakes approach? What's a little experiment I can design so that I can get some feedback right away on what it would be like to follow that apple path or that orange path or that strawberry path. People who come to my workshop are going to have their eyes opened to 3 different future selves, to 3 completely different possibilities they probably never thought of before. Then they're going to get to experience that aha moment when they realize that their brain makes predictable mistakes when they imagine those futures. And then they're going to walk away with little prototype steps they can take. What would it feel like if I follow this apple pathway, this orange pathway, or this strawberry pathway? They're going to take those prototype steps away with them and be able to take action. Like in the next 48 hours, take some action. What would it feel like if I follow this path, or this path? See you at ACRE.
Okay, so without further ado, I'm actually going to sort of introduce the coaching session that we had, and I'm going to let you sit back and listen. It goes on for about 31 minutes, and after that I'll just say some concluding words, and then we will jump in and have hopefully a robust discussion.
Okay. So the issue that I thought about, like, I'm pretty open to whichever angle we take on it, but in a nutshell, my entrepreneurial journey kind of started last summer. So it's kind of about where you want to start with the story, because if we begin at last summer, I built my workshop for Mindcamp, and then I thought in the fall I was going to commercialize it, maybe, or do something with it. And then because
of some other things happening in my life, I didn't do that right away. And then I kind of lost my mojo a bit. And then, you know, it was winter time here, and it's like you kind of feel crappy and nothing's happening. And then I was out shoveling snow one day after having met with the little mastermind group that I have. So that was one good thing I did for myself in December. I said, okay, when January comes and all the parties are over and all the family gatherings are finished, I'm going to feel this big hole in my life. So what can I plan right now that's going to carry me through? And I thought, you know, I had been a part of this really by chance, one-time mind mastermind kind of group. And I thought that was really cool. We just sat down 4 people, and we each took half an hour and gave our challenge and got our input, and then we moved on to the next person. That was so great. Now maybe I could do that with some people around here. So I invited 3 people over to my house the first week of January, and we had this great mastermind session around, you know, creative entrepreneurship and strengths and talents and business ideas. But one of the takeaways that I had from that discussion was everybody else is bogged down by way more external responsibilities right now. So I was out shoveling snow and thinking about what we'd been talking about. And, you know, one other person in my group was going to go to South Africa to speak. And I thought, yeah, like maybe when I'm more established in what I'm doing, that would be cool. But I was thinking about, well, they have all these responsibilities, childcare and parent care. And right now I have neither. So why should I wait? You know, why should I wait? So as you know, I took action on that the same day to great effect.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is after that happened, my dad was at a conference at West, and there was a really great keynote speaker, and he was talking to the speaker afterwards. And, you know, as dads do, they like to brag. And he was saying that I was going to go to South Africa to speak later in the year. And this speaker has been speaking professionally for 25 plus years. And he said, tell your daughter to write me an email and ask me for my white paper about public speaking. So I wasn't actually that excited to receive this information. I was kind of like, I don't know who this guy is. I didn't see him speak. I don't even know if he's good. I mean, I believe my dad, but he's also an excitable guy. So I was kind of like, a little skeptical. But eventually I got around to writing an email to this guy, and he sent me a white paper that was 23 pages long of all this detail of the business of public speaking. And I was like, oh my God, this is just like, honestly, I don't get ticked off very easily, but it just pissed me right off. I was like, come on, I need like this much information. And it's like, bang, here's everything. And it was really kind of an ungrateful way to think. But anyway, I did follow up, and this guy who sent the white paper was wonderfully gracious, said he would do anything he could to help me, introduced me to a whole group of people here near Toronto who do public speaking as a business. And so as a result, I have all these new connections and people who are so great and willing to help. And so I said yes to a new part of the journey just yesterday. There are 2 ladies in the group who are setting up an opportunity in September to get some video taken. So they're creating an event. There will be a professional videographer there. They're trying for an audience of 100 people. And they wanted to find a 3rd speaker to split the costs with. So each of us will have a 30-minute time slot. So I saw this in the Facebook group, and I thought, oh, now that's a price point I can handle. I'm going to say yes to that. And so I sent an email like, oh, did you fill the spot yet? And they hadn't. So now the spot is mine. And I'll be speaking an hour from here or so in the late September to an audience of 100 people and getting some video that I can then use for marketing. So it's kind of funny because I haven't really narrowed down on my exact business yet. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to speak about for 30 minutes. And most of all, I have no idea how I'm going to find 30 people in a city that's an hour and a half from here where I know nobody to fulfill my part of the bargain to fill the room with attendees.
Yeah.
But it's another one of those things where I just kind of threw a dart into the future and said, yes, I'm going to do that.
Okay. Okay. So if we were to sit here today and talk about any of the business outcomes that you are looking to accomplish over the next, how long ever you want to sort of time frame you want to look at, what would be the one thing on your mind right now that would give you the biggest benefit if we were to spend on it the next 30, 40 minutes?
I think the biggest benefit, if I could know something right now that I'll probably have to figure out and fumble around to find in the next 6 or 8 months, it's what do people want to hear about from me?
Okay. Okay. So if we in the next 30 to 40 minutes, if we figure out a really good, compelling or an approach to finding you a good and compelling topic, would that be something that you'd be interested in?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So this sounds very much, if I contextualize it in terms of what we've been talking about in the hero's journey, this is very much a call to adventure that you are sort of struggling with. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and at this stage, it looks like you are very enthusiastic about accepting this call. But now the ramifications of reality is kicking in.
That's true, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let me maybe just ask you a few questions before we jump into this journey and explore it a little bit more. What is this public speaking? Oh, let's take one step back. Have you thought about what your purpose is in terms of what you want to accomplish?
No. Well, I've thought about it, but I don't know what it is. So
Okay.
if we go a little bit off the record here for a minute, I will share with you that on the first webinar, you told the story of the panning for gold in the river.
Yeah.
And I sat here and cried because I just felt like it was such a good reinforcement of the idea that you don't have to know right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll try and pick more uplifting stories in the future.
No, it was wonderful. It was so impactful. It really, I mean, that's going to stick with me forever, for the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah. So let me maybe ask you, what is it that you yearn for in terms of your future? And I mean, we can cut all of this out if it gets a tad too personal, but
sure.
Yeah.
So the thing that I really want is to do meaningful work that has an impact for somebody else. I feel like it sounds a bit vanilla to say it because it's how I've thought for a long time, but I know at the same time it's totally different than the corporate treadmill that many people are on. But yes, meaningful work. One of the challenges for me is that I've been in manufacturing and engineering for more than 15 years, and I have 2 degrees in that. So all of my education and experience generates a credibility in those areas. But what I'm really passionate about is helping people. And so there's a disconnect between my professional qualifications and where I feel the call to adventure is taking me.
Yeah. If I go off the record for a moment, what I can maybe share with you because I can share with you a part of my life. I started studying statistics, mathematics, and computer science. And if you look at where I ended up, it is not very close to where I started from. And it took me about 30 years to understand that the whole IT, information technology world, wasn't the right world that I wanted to be in. So, but the benefit of it is, and maybe this is a opinion of value for you as well, is that I did all of those things in order to come to the point where I decided that that's not right for me and I want to do something different. So that was, and if I contextualize it sort of into the hero's journey again, that was my road of trials that brought me to where I started finding my purpose. So I don't consider all of that time wasted time. I actually consider it, that was just my school fees that I had to pay in order to get to the place where I wanted to be. And if you say for example, something like you want to do meaningful work that is going to be helpful to other people, that is as elegant a statement of purpose as you can have. If you think back to that first session, we sort of talked about a number of questions, and that is really for people that have no idea. And you can find that people will go through those questions and analyze it for months, and they might come to a very elegant statement like you've just made about wanting to do meaningful work. And there's nothing wrong. That's a very, very good purpose to have. So I wouldn't say there's an absence of purpose.
No, it's just not very specific.
No, but that's okay. That's okay. You've got lots of time to explore and fine-tune what purpose is going to mean to you over time. And it's quite possible that it might change direction. You never know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we sort of take that as your statement of purpose at the moment, that you want to do meaningful work, how does this call to adventure about doing this speaking engagement, how does it support that?
I think that it's kind of I'm imagining a two-pronged approach where I can do some consulting work that is ongoing. So, you know, it's meaningful because you have an ongoing relationship with a person or a business, a group of people where you're helping them over time. And those experiences lead to more stories that can be shared in a more generic, generalized way with an audience, you know, speaking from the stage. Mm-hmm. So I think that the two kind of go together, back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what you're saying to me is that answering this call to adventure is going to give you an opportunity to sort of establish yourself in front of a group of people, which will take you some way towards ultimately doing this work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's always nice when we start with the easy questions. Okay, because I'm going to complicate your life a little bit now.
Okay.
Okay, and this is just to sort of grant you the wish of at the end of the session for you to know what it is that you're going to talk about. So, knowing that you're answering this call to adventure and knowing that it supports your purpose of doing meaningful work, what would be the best thing that you can share with those people on that day that's going to be meaningful for you and that's going to have great value for them?
I'm going to make a quick note.
Sure. I'm going to share the entire recording with you as well. So,
Okay.
yeah, but you're welcome to take notes.
Meaningful for me and of great value to them.
Yeah. And while you're actually thinking about that on an unconscious level, let me ask you a conscious question. What is it that you are going to be doing in the future? And it's okay if you don't know exactly, but
What I would really love to do is have a small roster of businesses who have me in every month or every quarter to help them do a great ideation session on whatever their toughest problem is right now.
okay.
And I think that would be really of great value to them, because I have the ability to be an outside insider or an inside outsider. To be there often enough to understand how things work, the culture, the people, what the business is all about, but to also be out in the world enough to be gathering new information about their problem, seeing what other people in the same situation are doing, and being able to share information with them on an ongoing basis during the gap between the times when I'm physically there. So that's what I imagine myself doing in the future, is kind of being an information gatherer and be always kind of incubating and ideating on a handful of problems that I'm aware of for people that I can help, businesses I can help.
Okay. And you see this as this is going to be really valuable to them?
Yes.
What specifically would be valuable to them?
The thing that will be most valuable to them is that I can bring them face to face with a different viewpoint. So maybe it's a customer service challenge, or maybe it's a recruiting or an employee team kind of challenge, where the leadership they are so close to the problem they can't see what's right in front of them, or they just need the information presented in a slightly different way. And also, again, with some outside stimulus or information about, oh, well, this is how it's done in a different industry, or this is how it's done at our competitor.
Okay. So you are going to do for them ideation sessions, and you are also going to gather information, and you're going to offer them different perspectives on issues that they are working with. Okay. And you're going to do this, if I remember correctly, you're going to be doing consulting. And you'll be doing, basically in the consulting, you will be doing the ideation sessions. So tell me a little bit more, how are you going to do these ideation sessions?
How am I going to do the ideation sessions?
Yeah.
I'm not sure where to go with the question. Like, to break the mold a little bit, to not have like the same old boring meeting in a boardroom. So just to make it more fun. I guess that's also part of the formula, right? Okay. Is that I like to make even the most serious topics fun. I can teach multivariate statistics to engineers and, make it fun. Yeah. Not that I want to do that in the future. I'm just saying I have the proof that I've done it in the past.
Yeah. Okay, so it's going to be more fun. What kind of process are you going to use?
I don't know. I haven't thought through the specifics. I guess I like to tailor it to the situation. So, as an example, I did this recently for a friend's business, and he was stuck with his sales targets for this year. He wasn't anywhere close to the sales targets. And I went to his website before I met with him just to see what was new. And I noticed that the contact information on the website was missing. And I knew it had been there before. So that just gave me a gut feeling of what kind of activity would work well to show him, to make him feel the problem, right? So I actually had 6 different activities we could have done that day, but the one I chose was based on this gut feeling from seeing the website. I said, let's make a list of everything you could do if you wanted to completely empty your sales funnel. And we were at a breakfast restaurant, so we flipped over the paper placemat, and I was the scribe, and he just kept giving me ideas, and once in a while I'd throw in one. So we kept going until we had the back of the paper placemat completely covered in everything you would do or forget to do or not do or do badly if you wanted to completely empty your sales funnel. And somewhere in the middle of that discussion, I said, would you take the contact information off your website? And he was like, oh yeah, that's a good one, write it down. And then when it was all finished, I said, okay, now, like, which ones do you think would have the most impact? Or how many of these are you doing now? That's what the question was. How many of these bad things are you doing now? And there were probably 8 or 10 things circled. And then I said, okay, well, which of these are the top 3 that you could take action on in the next 7 days? Mm-hmm. So it's a long rambling answer to your question, but it comes from just little bits of information gathering and some intuition.
Okay. Information gathering and intuition. Okay. Now, if you have to prove to all of these potential clients why they should make use of you, what would you say to them?
I don't know what I have to say. I feel like my challenge is just to get into places where I can hang out with people until they think I'm so awesome they just want to have me around. And then I can prove to them my business value.
Okay, well, that's a good why to be awesome. Okay, but you mentioned 2 things there. You're talking about awesome to be around, which is very, very important, but also to demonstrate business value. Mm-hmm. So, and you sort of, when you were talking about your friend that you helped, you were already moving towards business value there because you got him to prioritize, you got him to select his top priorities, and you got him to take action on that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are all good things that support business value. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you're saying to me, you know what you want to do. You saying to me, you know why you should do it. You're actually telling me that you know how to do it because you've got processes and you've got intuition helping you, and you've given me examples of all of those things. Now, I guess my next question is going to be: if you know all of these things, what would be the most valuable thing that you could talk about on that day that might help you accomplish all of this?
I think the most valuable thing I could speak about that day is the importance of perspective. And I could draw examples from my life that would explain why it is that I'm good at seeing different perspectives. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when I've traveled, I love some of the really small things about travel. Like, I really love going to grocery stores in other countries to see what's on the shelves, what's in the fridge and the freezer, and like different things are in different sections of the store depending on the culture and what people eat. And it's so fascinating. And the way things are said in different languages, the fact that there are some sentiments you just can't express in every language. I think if I talked about that, if I could really make people feel that there was a good reason that I'm good at having different perspectives, then they could see and then tie that into the business value. Then they'd be able to see why they should want to work with me.
And if you spoke to them about something like that, how do you think they will react? What is the best possible outcome that you think will be?
The best possible outcome, they'll say, wow, I never thought of it that way before, and I really need to have her into my business to do an ideation session.
Yeah, and what would that give you?
That would give me ongoing income.
Yeah. Okay, and how do you feel about that?
Awesome, because I keep seeing things I want to do and places I want to go.
Yeah. Now, let's say, for example, that was one option. What else might you talk about?
So one other thing that I could talk about is this workshop that I built last summer. It's kind of about taking career and life planning and applying an engineering process to it. Mm-hmm. And that would be of interest to a business audience, because I could speak about how people get frustrated and leave a company when they feel like there's not any more room to grow, or they feel that their work isn't that meaningful. And so I could present this way of thinking about career planning as an activity that could be done within a company that would entice people to think and maybe speak more openly about the kinds of activities they'd like to do in their job, and that would help keep people there longer. So the business value would be that there'd be lower turnover. Mm-hmm. But I think I could also speak to that topic in a way that would be engaging and help people feel what it's like to be a frustrated person who really wants to do awesome stuff and has to keep jumping jobs because you run out of growth room.
Yeah. Now, if you think about how you feel about this topic versus how you felt about the previous one.
So I think that the previous one is more, it's like the eventual goal. It's the one that's slightly less familiar, but there's more pull there. Mm-hmm. You know, the future scoping for careers, that's something I've developed far enough along that I kind of know what's there. I know where to look for the research and put the case studies together. But maybe it was more like it was interesting to me at the time because that's where I was at the time. But I think that the value of outside perspective or helping people change their perspective or something to do with that is more like it ties together more story points from my life.
Okay, yeah. And if you think about, let's think about the first proposal that you made, and let's forget about how you think about it up here for a moment. But, how does it feel when you think in your heart? How does it feel there?
It feels awesome.
And let's do one test. If you sort of move the feeling down into your gut, what does your gut feel say to you?
It's like that excited, nervous energy.
Oh, okay. Good. So have you sort of got a idea about what would be the best topic for you to talk about?
Yeah, I do. I got to talk about why every business needs an inside outsider or something like that.
Yeah.
Insider in residence.
Okay. And we got to that, and I don't think we even took half an hour.
Amazing.
Okay. I'm going to ask you one other thing, though. In this little process that we followed so far, is there any insights that came to you?
It's amazing to me that what's amazing to me is that these feelings and thoughts were already in me somewhere, but it takes me being on the hot seat here with you and being recorded to blurt it out.
Yeah. And everything comes from you. So it's there already. That's a pretty good insight to have. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I really think it's great to think of an alternative. Like that was really cool when you said, "Oh, and what else?" Because if you think of maybe the next thing might have been even more compelling. It's possible, to add on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So are you happy with what we've done so far?
Yes, I am. It was great.
Okay, guys, that was the coaching session. I've unmuted everyone, so I think we can probably proceed on to the next part of this. And just by the way, if any of you are interested in meeting Emily and Sjoerd and myself, we will all be at the ACRI conference that she mentioned in a talk. It's a wonderful conference to go to. It's the largest creativity conference in the world, touch wood, and it's the second oldest creativity conference in the world, and it's just an amazing conference to go to. And I would love to see some of you guys there. So, and just by the way, I earn no commissions in recommending it. Okay, so it's open. If you are interested in asking a question or sort of discuss what was happening in the coaching sessions, feel free to jump in.
Okay, so from my side, guys, it's Bridget. It always amazes me how much one can do in a short space of time. I think that you definitely were able to demonstrate that very well here, Francois, and obviously, and Emily as well. So I think I will still try and I'm not quite sure what to ask, but that's definitely an observation for me. It's such a powerful process.
Yeah, thanks for those comments. The interesting thing for me, and I promise you, I didn't plan it out this way, but it's the whole thing about going back to purpose. And what I said before we sort of played this recording, I said purpose is something that's emergent. And Emily she's on the call with us, so she's welcome to contradict me on this, but it's easy to think you don't have a purpose. But when you start talking about purpose, you will find that there is something there and there's something that emerges. And that is good enough to take you forward and create almost an anchor around which you can build something substantial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, she said in the beginning of that call, she said, well, she doesn't really know what her purpose is. But when I asked her a few questions, it came out, it emerged.
Yep, definitely did.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes we get into this whole idea of a purpose should be this magnificent thing that we should never be able to attain. And there's nothing further from the truth, because a purpose is there to live. You have to live your purpose, and making it meaningful, making it important to yourself makes it easier to live that purpose than to make it this unattainable goal that you one day will get to. Purpose is something that you live today.
Yeah.
And it emerges and it grows from there.
Well said.
I could add on to that, Francois. This is Emily.
Hi, Emily.
For me, what's really, that was really enlightening when you kind of helped me elicit my purpose statement there, because my background is so rooted in the practical. There isn't, in the engineering world, there isn't a lot of value to something that's ethereal, right? It has to be tangible. You have to be able to see it, and so that was a huge aha for me. Oh wait, it doesn't have to be something that I can, sketch out, draw, show somebody, prototype it. It can be a little bit more generalized.
Absolutely. I mean, it's your purpose. It belongs to no one else. It's not there to impress anyone else. It's just there to give you fulfillment. And the great thing about purpose is that ultimately, if you think, and I'm sure many of the people listening here tonight have sort of at some stage become aware of the Maslow hierarchy, and you get to sort of self-actualization. Self-actualization is about becoming the best possible you that you can be. But then there's a next step, which is not often talked about, and that's transcendence. And that's about becoming something beyond who you are. And purpose is the tool that gets us there. Purpose gives you that space in which you can grow and become the absolute best you can be. And then it sort of gives you the potential to go even beyond that. And that's what's so beautiful about starting with purpose and saying, this is what I do for me. This is what I live for me. And when I use me there, it's not about the selfish me. It's about me being strong for myself so that I can play a role in this world that is remarkable.
Francois, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Babe, yeah.
Yes.
I think that is a bit of an aha moment for me, because I find with myself, I'm looking for a purpose outside myself, so making a difference in the world, all those good kind of things. As Emily said, sometimes it all sounds a bit vanilla, but actually, I think it's really important to look at the purpose for yourself, because if it's not for yourself first, you're not going to be able to live it out, number one, and you're not going to be able to live it strongly enough to make an impact on others. Mm-hmm. So that's really very insightful. Thank you. And the other comment I just wanted to make on a different topic was I liked your use of the what else with Emily. So it wasn't just let's just stick with one topic. What else might you talk about? So that you do cover more than one base, and think a bit outside. I really like that.
Well,
sometimes a client needs what else about 5 times before you
Yeah. Well, Bev, I'm going to suggest to you that if you like that, you should jump in 2 weeks' time with a short session on whole brain thinking and the hero's journey, because when you look at it, the hero's journey just frames the journey that we're going on. But what is important is that when you are working with either yourself or someone else, it's a creative problem-solving process. And when I started, I said the whole role of the coach is to create possibility and potential for the coaching client, and sort of help them and support them towards creating more possibility and potential. And once they've got this absolute vista of potential, then you can say, okay, now let's go and pick the best.
Yeah, I like that picture that you paint. You actually called it the canvas of possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Create a canvas of possibility and potential. And so that's a lovely picture to have. You know, you've got this canvas, but the client actually, with the client, it's almost like you're doing a dual artistic thing. You've both got paintbrushes and paint, and you're creating this canvas together. But I'm guessing that mostly the client, you're helping the client know how to paint their own canvas. If I just extend the analogy.
Yes.
What you're doing in the coaching is supplying them the brushes and the paint and the canvas and helping them paint their own picture of possibility. Just to say, I've already booked my place this shoot, so I'm way ahead of you. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Sure, good time for you to chime in.
Yeah, what can I chime? I loved the conversation, and I was also amazed, although I already know how good a coach Francois is, I was amazed on how Emily came to find her purpose in such a short time. And yeah, that it was already in her was very clear. And I made some notes as well, and saw some similarities with my own life. And here is also a technical guy, someone with an engineering background. And when I went to Accra about 4 years ago now, I came into that tribe and found, yeah, this is where I want to continue. So you must be patient in finding your purpose, but on the other hand, if you can get someone to help you finding it, you see what changes that can make in such a short time.
Yeah, and I want to go back and at the risk of sort of over-laboring this point, you know, we build so much of our own experience and our own lives around the expectations of others. And in a way, what we then do is we sort of put the responsibility of who we become outside of us. And, you know, thinking that we have to have this purpose that really astounds and impresses everyone sort of creates an expectation that it's very difficult to live up to. Whereas if we look inwards and we really start focusing on what is it that's going to be good for us, then it becomes a lot easier, because it's simple things that make life good for us. I mean, and I want to use this as a metaphor, an example. I had the good fortune a couple of years to sort of spend time with a really remarkable teacher who happened to be a Buddhist. And what he said to me in Buddhism, if you look at the meditations always begin with yourself. Then you consider your loved ones. Then you consider your friends. And then you consider the bigger world. And then you consider your enemies. So you put yourself at the center of this meditative path. And he said, it's not about being selfish, but it's about putting yourself in the place where you can be strong for yourself. And by being strong for yourself, you can be strong for your loved ones. You can be strong for your friends. You can be strong for your community, and ultimately strong for even the people that dislike you. So if you take that inside out point of view, it gives you that opportunity to sort of grow from a point of view that serves you and ultimately serves everyone else.
Yep. You're the hero of your journey, aren't you?
I could not have said it better. Oh, you should have scripted that as an ad before the time.
Yep. Yeah, we're still in the marketing phase.
Okay, we sort of approaching, I think, well, no, we've actually got some time. We've got some time. Anyone else, any questions, any comments, any opinions, any ideas?
So for me, the other thing that stood out that I thought was meaningful was, and I'm not sure how Emily experienced it, but your questions around how does it feel in your heart and in your gut. We often don't listen to our bodies, and I think that's an added, it gives us an extra perspective of how it feels, and that's probably useful in this, in all conversations, but in particular when you're looking for your purpose.
Absolutely. I think we've, to a certain extent, we've forgotten how to inhabit our bodies, and we've forgotten the fact that we are actually a whole being. And if we get caught up, and if we just get caught up in our intellect, we forget a lot of things. And I'm using the body as a metaphor for our feelings, for our emotions, for our intuitive feeling about how we make decisions. And because if you're just thinking about the facts the whole time, if you're just thinking about the rationality, you sort of divorce yourself from a big part of who you are, a big part of who you are as an emotional human being, as a sensing human being. And, in a sense, when we forget about the embodiment, we sort of leave the present moment, which is also why, we try and start every one of these sessions with the return to presence. Because the return to presence makes us aware of the fact that it's not only this rational being, it's also about experiencing the world through our senses on dimensions other. One of my favorite teachers, Robert Doltz, he always talks about what is the other intelligences that you can engage. And Sjoerd is going to talk a lot about those kind of intelligences in the next session in 2 weeks' time from now. And he's going to, and I don't want to sort of speak on behalf of him, but he's going to talk about the intellect, and he's going to talk about rational thinking, and he's going to talk about the place where I feel most at home, the imaginative thinking. And he's going to tell you much, much more than I could about engaging all these different intelligences in a way that serves you, rather than you trying to sort of manufacture something that is impossible to achieve.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sjoerd, do you want to do some promotion for your session next week, in 2 weeks' time?
In 2 weeks' time. Yeah, well, what I'm going to talk about is, of course, how people think and different kinds of thinking. For me, it was an aha moment when I decided to work as an entrepreneur and started a training for innovative trainer, and did a small brain test. And it was a very small one, not a really good one, but it gave you some insights about your thinking. And since I thought it was not such a good one, I wanted to know more about it, and I did some reading about it. I came to a course, and I came to the Niesling Brain Instruments, where I'm a licensee, a licensed user of those instruments. And it got me some insights about why I skipped my job and why I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was where I had my most passion was not in the rational thinking. It was not in the process thinking, but it was in strategic thinking, in the creative thinking, in different ways. And seeing that, I understood why I didn't feel at the right spot at that time, and why I didn't work quite well with my managing director. So what I found from knowing how you think and knowing how others more or less think or have an idea of how they think makes it easier to communicate with others and also easier to coach others. And that for me was something that I say, this is something I have to work on. And one of the things that I use it for is in leadership and help people that are leading at works to do their leadership in a better way so that they understand the people that they are leading and don't do it from a functional point of view anymore, but more as, okay, we have something to achieve here. We have a purpose in our company, in our organization, and how are we going to address that purpose, and how can we align the purposes of others? So that's what was interesting me and where I wanted to go further in. And in the webinar in 2 weeks' time, we will go into the whole brain thinking part. I will look at those different perspectives. I will also look at some new findings in neuroscience, and especially in neuroplasticity, what that means and how that can help you on your journey. And see what kind of thinking preferences are needed in your whole brain journey and how you can adapt to that. So there's a lot of stuff I have to go through to make it a beautiful webinar, but be sure that it is going to be an interesting one again.
Okay, thanks, Sjoerd. Okay, anyone for a last question? Okay, I think I once again want to thank everyone that took the time to attend this webinar tonight. And if you think you're hearing castanets in the background, it's just my dogs running on a wooden floor. So thank you very much, everyone, for showing up, and especially thank you for Emily. That was such a wonderful example of a coaching client, and in the way that she sort of really was open to the experience. And I would just like to remind everyone out there is, if you ever do become a coaching client, just embrace it. Embrace it in the way that Emily has so beautifully shown us. So I'm going to say to you guys, good night. And for some of you, good morning.
Have a great day.
Thank you for showing up. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Yep. See you in 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Okay. Bye-bye.